Good morning. My name is Colby Gunzelman, and I am the current student pastor at First Baptist Church in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And today I'm going to be talking to you about an existing ministry that is called First Students. And again, that is the student ministry of First Baptist Church in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I have been here for 6.5 years, almost 7, and there is so many things that excite me about what the Lord's doing here through this specific ministry and in the life of our church. So today I'm going to walk through some of the things that I'm hoping to implement as we continue on in this ministry for years to come. I'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's already existing here, and then of course some of the things that I'm hoping to implement into the future. And there are several of those things that we want to get to. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about our ministry. This ministry is a ministry that has 7 different school districts represented. And if you wanted to get technical and you wanted to count a homeschool district, then we would have 8 different types of districts incorporated here in our student ministry. Now, of those 7 to 8, I would say that one of those would be kind of our majority. About 65% of our students come from one school, and then kind of the other percentages are mixed in pretty good between 2 or 3 of the other schools, and we have just a couple of students from the remaining schools in those districts. This presents some challenges, and I think it's important to know that as we move forward. Some of those challenges are that the different schools that we have represented here at First Baptist are not exactly the same type of school. Very different demographics. There's even rivals on the sports courts and fields wherever they compete, even in choir and orchestra and band, all of these things. So we have students coming from places that don't make connecting or community super easy. And so some of the things that I'm hoping to implement will hopefully help us to connect better and overcome some of those natural barriers that happen when you have so many different people from many different places. I want to show you some statistics before we continue as well, because I think that will also be helpful in talking about some of the space issues that we have going on in our building. When I got here 6.5 years ago, we had maybe 35 to 40 students on average on our Wednesday night worship, which is our main worship session in student ministry. And on Sunday mornings, we had maybe 30 to 35 on average for that first year or so. But now we have grown quite a bit. This year, 2026, the first semester, we have had over 110 students at each worship service and gathering that we have. And even you can take that and stretch it back to August of 2025. This entire school year, we have not been under the 100 student mark on our Wednesday night worship. And Sunday mornings is also up in number as well. We are averaging 65 to 70 on that platform. And I mention both in different ways because as is common in student ministry and in all kinds of other ministries, the Wednesday night gathering or the midweek gathering tends to be the more well attended, while the Sunday morning that's harder to wake up for, it's a little bit more difficult to put away the desires of a weekend that would be interrupted by a Sunday morning. I just love the fact that we're growing in both ways. And the Lord has been so gracious to us in that way. He's blessed us with some amazing leaders. He's blessed us with some students who are buying into Him, to what He wants for them, and they're inviting their friends, and their friends are staying, and they're buying in. It's a beautiful picture of what it is I believe the Lord wants for His church. So, with all of that in mind, I want to begin walking through some of the things that I would like to implement here in our ministry. A ministry of 7th through 12th grade students, typically ages 12 to 18. 6 years to do a whole lot of work, a whole lot of relationship building, a whole lot of pointing people to Jesus. But we always have room to grow. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is implementing a better check-in system for our student area. So here is a picture of our current setup for check-in. Students will walk in. Oftentimes they'll come off of the elevator, or they'll come from one of the staircases back behind the check-in area, and this sits right at the entrance of the student area. They are supposed to stop here, tell us their name. We will type their name into our current database, and then they will move on to what you see here next as the name tag station. At both of these stations, we have a mix of adult volunteers and student leaders manning those two stations. So we've trained them up to welcome with a smile, to greet people, to use their name if they know their name, to be welcoming and joyful in those moments. You know, first impressions is a big deal. But currently, because of the growth that we are experiencing and because of the size of the ministry, this one-stop check-in system creates kind of a bottleneck into our ministry. And so even if our people are joyful, even if there is some good interaction happening, we've got people standing and waiting, in my mind, you know, sort of wasting time before they can actually get into the student area and begin to build those relationships and get ready for worship. So I would love to implement the following. I am looking into different options. I have not decided which options I'm going to go with. They do cost money, so I'll have to work with my financial executive pastor to get some of these things approved. But currently, we use a program that is just really not user-friendly and not really customizable to what we need as a student ministry. So I'm looking into Planning Center. I'm also looking into Breeze, which are both ways in which you can use check-in systems, a database for all the information of each person that comes to your ministry. There's even some financial tithing type things you can use on Breeze. We don't necessarily need that for student ministry, but the database alone could be a huge plus for us. It would allow us to see easier what students' needs are, where students are from. The check-in system can be accessed not by just one computer or one device, but you can actually send a link or a login to different individuals who can then, from their phone even if they want to, check in people from multiple devices at once. And with that, I think the desk that we have right now has served its purpose, and it would be nice to have more space, to have 2 or 3 check-in slots instead of just the one that we have at the moment. And then the name tag station as well. This is something that we've done for several years now. A lot of people do this. It's nothing fancy or new or groundbreaking, but having another touch point, another relational connection point after the check-in to get that name tag, put it on your chest so that, again, you have an exchange of names, you have another interaction even physically as you hand the name tag over. It just makes people feel welcome. It makes people feel like they belong and like there is something worth being here for. We could use 2 name tag stations or maybe even 3. And so I think what that looks like is just as simple as adding one more table, spreading out some name tags, and getting a couple more people to man those stations so that, again, we don't have more waiting in line to enter into the student area. I want to tell you this too. We got to figure out a better way to get our students moving through that process in a more not bottlenecked, but in a more streamlined way. The way that our building is set up, and there's nothing I can do about this immediately, there are just too many access points to the student area. We have a door on the back side that is kind of like a fire escape stairwell, and it is a crash bar door, which means that I cannot lock it from inside the student area, but I can lock it from the stairwell side. We put signs up right now to keep students from going down that way, and we do have it locked with a sign on the back side to tell students that are trying to enter this way to go back down and find a new way to come into the student area. The reason we have this in place, well, there's several reasons, but what really pushed us to make this a couple years ago, this change, is we had a student who, as soon as we began to shift into the worship area from the lobby hangout space, she snuck out that back door, and she actually made it out into the parking lot and down the road where she met up with a person who she had texted, and they were in the mall shopping, doing whatever they wanted to do when their parents thought they were supposed to be at church. And so this was a pretty scary situation. It was a lesson learned on our end, even all the way down to our security team who at the door, should have stopped her. We have learned that lesson, and now we have policies in place to make sure that when a student leaves or is walking out of the building, they are questioned and they are seen getting into their car and or a parent's car. But anyways, all of that to say, we need a better way to keep people coming in one area without question. They're not slipping in the back way. They're not sneaking out the back way, but they come straight through the front entrance. And this also leads to other questions about the safety of our students. We need to know where they're at all times. We have the check-in system that lets us know that they are there, that we can go back to and track and see were they actually present at this time, or did they ever even show up. This is helpful as parents sometimes have questions. Hey, so-and-so told me that they were at church tonight, but were they actually there? This allows us to go in and confirm or deny whether or not they stepped foot into the student area on that particular night. While we're on the topic of safety, I want to mention the fact that we have added extra eyes to our rooms. So each room, and I'm looking at one right now, has cameras. These are not audio cameras. They do not pick up sound, but they do record visually 24/7, and our volunteers have been made aware of this, and students are also made aware of this when they enter into the student ministry. And each door that we have has a glass window so that there is no complete shut out sight visually from the room. And even in case of emergency, we recently added, what do you call them? These blinds, essentially, in case of emergency. If there's somebody in the building, if there's an intruder or something like that, we can shut the doors and we can put that cloth down and turn the lights off and protect ourselves from potential danger in that respect as well. Now, we have recently installed new policies in the student area specifically. And what these policies are essentially a behavioral policy. You can see it right here. It's actually posted in each small group classroom and throughout the entire lobby. There's 2 or 3 different places where students can read from this. And we also, when they first come into the student area, direct them to one of those so that they can be informed and know what is expected of them. I won't read the whole thing, but just an example. The first 5 things: do not be distraction to others in worship or small group. Treat all people and property with respect. Do not say disrespectful things. Keep your hands to yourself. Follow directions given to you by adult leaders. Enjoy worship and group time with us. And each one of these has a scripture reference tied to it so that students and parents can see that we didn't just come up with these things out of nowhere. There's actually biblical principles and concepts that are tied to each of these things so that people know we have expectations not just based on what we want, but what scripture calls us to do when we gather together as a people. And then right underneath this, you have to have consequences, right? So we have consequences, and this is a tiered system. And again, I won't read it all, but essentially your first offense is kind of a warning, if you will, in general. The second one is a parent will be contacted, and there will be a conversation between you, me, the student pastor, and your parent. And then the third one is we have the right to keep you from coming to our ministry for however long it is that we want. The first offense, I believe, is you miss 2 gatherings, and then after that, there's also another layer that says after your 4th offense, we have the right to tell you you cannot come back until we decide you are ready to come back. Now, we had some pushback when we implemented this not too long ago, but also, I will say more than that, we had people who were glad and thankful that we had something like this in place. And those people who I'm talking about who were the most thankful would be our volunteers. I found that what this allowed them to do is help students stay within these bounds by referring to this sheet as soon as something happened. Not necessarily in a scare tactic way, but in a way that allows students to understand clearly, hey, there's rules here, there are things that are expected of me here, and I'm beginning to get close to breaking one of those expectations. It also helps protect the volunteers. This is something that I knew would protect them, but I had no idea how thankful they would be for this protection until we actually implemented this policy. Several of them came up to me and just told me it makes them feel safer, it makes them feel more comfortable, more secure, knowing that if they have to do a disciplinary action or if they have to get on to a student, there's actually a structure that they can point to. It's not just the individual volunteer getting on to them, right? But they actually are just instilling the policy that is already in place. Now, one of the biggest needs in our church, and in our ministry specifically to students, is the need to integrate them into the life of the church. The need to get them involved and engaged with other people who aren't in 7th through 12th grade. And so I have some ideas, some things that I'm hoping to begin implementing in that respect as well. In fact, one of them is already in motion. I've already had one meeting with our deacon board, not our deacon board, but our deacon, what do you call them? The deacons of our church and the active deacons, that's what I'm looking for. And I kind of gave them a state of the church address, if you will, but specifically the student ministry. And one of the things that I told them about was, man, I just have a desire, a burden even, to get our students more involved in the life of the church. I want them to serve. I want them to see older and wiser and more experienced believers serving and loving other people well. I want them to be kind of boots on the ground, if you will, in these senses. And in talking to the deacons, man, they begin to get excited, and they even helped me kind of brainstorm in that moment what that might look like. You know, some of them said, well, I'm a greeter, and I would love to have a student or two every so often come in and greet with me. And somebody said, I'm on the widower team, and we go all the time and we clean up the widows' houses and gardens, and we even sometimes we'll bring them meals and just spend some time with them and praying with them. I would love for some students to come and do that with me. We have the guys on the cook team. They want students to come cook for them. And so I was encouraged because I didn't really know what possibilities were there. But the deacons made it very clear there are things that we can do, and they're willing to help that happen. So what I'm working on now is a kind of a schedule or even a template of a Sunday morning regime where we will begin to put students who are interested into these time slots. Not every Sunday, because we still want them to be involved in the life of the student ministry. We still want them to have peer-on-peer interactions. We still want them to have age-appropriate lessons that they're learning from and growing in. But periodically, maybe once a month, still fleshing this out, maybe twice a month, where on a Sunday they are actually serving in these ways. We're going to roll this out to students by having a kind of an interest meeting, and then also a online sign-up sheet where they can fill out their name, their information, their parents' information, and then also choose from a drop-down list of some of the areas that are available to them so they can indicate which ones they are interested in. This is something that I'm hopeful will carry on for many years to come, and that will be fruitful in the way that students learn and experience how it is to be a part of the church beyond just consuming or being a participant in a specific age group ministry, but that there's a bigger picture. There's a church that needs them and that will benefit from the service that they can provide, that the Lord has gifted them even with. And so as we begin to roll this out, I think students will be excited. Students will begin to buy into the bigger picture of the church, the local church, and we will begin to hopefully, prayerfully see that they are no longer just content to be a student in this church, but to be an active participant in this church who just happens to be a student. Now, I also want to say we are running out of space in our student ministry. I've always been somebody who is very aware of how important space is. For example, when I first got here, there was lots of spaces in the lobby that were all kind of closed off. And what I mean by that is couches that were like set up in squares so that you come and you sit in these couches and you're only talking to the people who are sitting on the couches with you. Or just a bunch of tables where everybody's inwardly focused. And what we did after about a year of being here, I realized how cliquish that forced students to be. And so we opened up into more of an open floor plan. We still have a couple of spaces, naturally that have chairs around a table where you sit together. But we have broken up all of the areas that we can break up to make it more of an outward focused seating arrangement. So I love how you can use a space to help people, even if it's subconsciously, you can help people to get focused on each other instead of just the few that they came in with. All that to say, I also understand that in a worship space, the way that you have things arranged makes a lot of difference in how things are received and how comfortable people are. You can make a long list. We talked a little bit about this in a class, the age group ministry class, and I think I would love to talk through some of the ways in which we're going to take more initiative in the way that we accommodate the growth that is happening in the student ministry. In our worship room right now, we have 135 chairs set up every week, and we fill every one of them, and we typically have volunteers sitting on the back walls. They go get some extra chairs and sit on the back wall. But the thing is, the back wall is not really much further out than the last row of chairs that we have set up. It is packed tight in there. You know about the 80% rule, that you'll never grow if your space is at that 80% capacity. We're beyond 80% capacity. We are sitting at more like 85 to 90% capacity. And so I've begun to brainstorm. I've met with our executive pastor and our personnel team and our interior design team even to think through what does it look like for us to make some more space for worship so that we can continue to grow. Because I know the fact that even though a student cannot articulate, oh my, there's no room in this space for me to invite my friends, I guess I won't. I do know that a student subconsciously feels how tight that space is, and their brain subconsciously will relay to them, you can't invite anybody else because there's no room for them. I do not want that to stop us from growth that is inevitable if we have space for it. So we have a plan to either knock out some walls and flip our space and minimize our stage to add about 40 to 50 extra chairs, or to knock out another set of walls that would open up into our lobby space and make it one kind of big open floor plan to where we can add as many chairs as is necessary for however long we need to add more chairs. There are pros and cons to each of these, but in designing this space, we don't want to lose the connectedness, the unity, or really even the atmosphere that we have right now. Right now in the room, everybody seems like they get along. Everybody seems like they are together and in this battle with one another. And I'm afraid that if we open it up too much, then we'll lose some of that connectedness. So we're really trying to weigh our options here and make the best possible adjustment so that more students can come, more students can hear the gospel, people feel more comfortable in the space that we have, not just to be comfortable for comfortable's sake, but comfortable for the sake of the gospel and the way that it moves in their life and in the life of the people who they bring with them. This is a long process. This isn't something, right, that you can make a decision on one day and have it done the next. And so one thing I'm learning about age group ministry in all sorts of different respects, whether it's a building project or if it is a discipleship project or relationship building, everything takes time. And everything takes careful consideration and planning. And it also takes all kinds of people working together, collaborating to make the best possible use of our time and our resources and our energy. And so, again, if I could circle back to getting more students involved with more experienced believers, I think this even could be a wonderful opportunity to put some older folks, some middle-aged folks, and some students together in a room and kind of brainstorm, what does it look like for this space to be transformed into something that will benefit all of us, not just our ministry, but the life of our church. So that is my plan, to get people together in a room of all ages from our church who love the Lord, so that they can hash some of these things out together. The students will learn what it looks like to have a realistic plan, potentially, and maybe an older person will be able to learn or remember what it's like to have these really big dreams of what a space could be. I'm very hopeful for this, and I'm excited for what the Lord might do through this building project. So lots of things that I've learned this semester tied into that one project really gets me excited to see how it all works together and what we end up with. The last thing I want to say before this video ends is the importance of volunteer recruiting and volunteer training. Honestly, I feel like we have made some big strides in the way that we recruit and train our volunteers, but as I sat through this course and read these textbooks and even had the discussions with other students, I just felt as if we had so much more room to grow. And so I have some ideas that I would like to talk about implementing as soon as possible. Honestly, man, I want to focus on getting these things rolling for this summer as we go into the next school year in August of 2026, because right now in the middle of a semester, it can be kind of tough to make a switch like what I'm talking about. So the recruiting process, what I'm trying to do is have an actual step-by-step process that each and every person who comes into our student ministry will have gone through before they become an official member of our team. And that's what I call it, our volunteer team. This looks like a whole bunch of different things, but a few things that I've already kind of brainstormed will be a one-on-one meeting with me in a place that's not the church, at a meal or a coffee shop or something like that, where I can just get to know the person on a personal level. And then they will have a more formal meeting where we kind of go through some of the doctrine that we believe, some of the ways in which we want students to be pointed to Jesus specifically. You know, what do you believe about salvation? Can you share the gospel with me? Give me your testimony. How will you use your testimony? Just all these different questions that will help people to see as they are pursuing a potential role in the student ministry, how important it is to us that they know these things and that they are excited and equipped to do these things. And then they will also have, of course, the background check. And not just a background check, but also a reference list. Nothing real formal in that sense, but just a couple people who are outside the church that I can text or call just to kind of give a quick, what do you know about this person? Would you recommend them for a role like this? And so I think having this structure and moving people through it does a lot of things. I think one, it protects us so that people can see, hey, they went through this process. We didn't just add them on a whim. They also told us yes and yes and yes to all of these things. We did our homework, essentially. But it also helps protect them from signing up and jumping into something that they're not super sure about or that they get blindsided by once they're in the ministry. This allows us to be more transparent, more open, and it helps us to cover more ground as far as expectations go for somebody who's entering into a volunteer role here in our student ministry. So that is step one. And then also with our trainings, I've really done a couple of different things over the past couple of years to try and see what it looks like, how we can train all of our people at one time to do some specific stuff, but also not overloading them with all the extra stuff that they have on their plates and their different families and the different calendars and schedules that we have coming together. So I would like to try, beginning in 2026, August through May into 27, a quarterly training where we cover 4 big specific topics, and where we also then, after covering those big topics at each of those trainings, we break into smaller groups and have time of discussion and even exploration around that specific topic so that we can learn and grow from each other. And I also want to incorporate in those meetings a dedicated prayer time that is not rushed, that is open, that we can talk about students and families and even our own students and families, so that we can build relational equity with one another, and that we can pray for other small groups and not just our own. Lots of things that I want to try, lots of things that this class has opened my eyes to that I want to implement in our student ministry. These are just a few, and I hope that this is something that the Lord will bless and that He will use to continue to grow our ministry, continue to give students depth and understanding and buy-in to who He is and to what He wants them to do with their lives. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.